Good morning. Welcome to another session of Dan Storm. So today, as I promised, I'm going to be taking you down my journey in the NHS in the first about 30 days to 60 days now. I'm just approaching the third month, I believe, in this short journey so far. It's been full of the unexpected. I've had a wonderful time in terms of, transitioning over from Canada into the UK. There have been a few, instances where you do obviously think about life back home and how you accommodated, how you were, how many of the different things that you experience in our daily life as a Canadian obviously don't certainly translate over in the daily life as a UK person, and that's to be expected. Where you're coming into a new country, a new culture. It's just a transition period that sometimes can, really make it difficult for people and can also set you up for long-term success if you actually are able to brace for a few of the changes that you can actually research back home. So when I was in Canada, I was doing extensive research by talking to people, talking to colleagues, seniors, people that have actually done this transition on many occasions, and there's so many feedbacks and people that have done this previously that have updated their that have actually shared their stories online and on YouTube and multimedia and social media these days. So I was able to get a feedback from a different range of people and different range of groups in different stages of their training to get an idea of what I'm going to be, seeing on a daily basis. Obviously, you can't prepare for everything. You have to be able to, adjust to some of the unexpected changes that will happen, which is a natural transition period that everybody's going to experience at certain points. But just generally off the bat, me and my wife were able to first get accustomed to the road changes here. The driving over here is completely different as compared to what we're used to in Canada. Obviously, it's a different, it's a different landscape. It's different. It's a different country with different geographical, zones. It's just absolutely completely different from what we're used to. We're used to big expressways, big highways with massive trucks and massive SUVs, and navigating through those SUVs on a daily basis to get to where you have to go. And now you're basically having to experience smaller roads, tighter congested areas, higher speeds. So it was a difficult transition at first, but now we've been able to really get accustomed to it. It's become a regular day, activity for us now. It doesn't even make a difference, because when you wake up in the morning, you're able to get yourself used to that because you've done it so many times. But generally speaking, if you are if you're an average driver back home in Canada, you should not have an issue transitioning over to the UK. There are different rules and laws here. Certain speed limits are higher, but then again, they do have good, road rules. They've got good signs, so it's generally you'll be able to transition well if you've done well in the Canadian system in terms of driving. Other than that, the NHS. Well, I don't know where to begin, but I think the best place to start would be the clinical experience as a doctor. So clinical training over here, obviously, people have gotten their research done, ahead of time before they transition over. But I felt the first 30 or 60 days, there's been adequate, support in terms of proper training and proper, proper guidance and supervision, which is very important, because a new trainee such as myself, when we come into a new country, we're expected to be able to catch up to speed relatively quickly in terms of what's the pressing need of that demographic. How are the clinical guidelines different from where you come from? These are very important, frameworks to be able to get familiarized with very quickly. So that was one of the biggest, stepping stones or learning objectives that I thought the first 30 days really provides you a good framework to get that sorted, because that is very important to establish that baseline before you can actually build future, steps and learning developments on top of. So I used to depend on a daily basis on UpToDate, which I still do. It's a wonderful clinical reference. It's called UpToDate. It is evidence-based medicine. It is what North American graduates, as well as my colleagues in clinical practice, have recommended, and a lot of people that I know in clinical practice use it on a daily basis. I've been able to custom myself to using the BNF and CK guidelines, which is the official UK guidance for clinical practitioners to be able to modulate their clinical practice according to the evidence-based medicine available for clinical clinicians in the UK. There's a lot of similarities between the UpToDate and CK guidances. So it's really useful to be able to familiarize yourself with the BNF-CK if you are considering moving over from Canada to the UK. So if you get familiarized yourself early enough with CK and BNF online resources, you will find yourself having to be able to accommodate or custom yourself to your clinical guidances a lot quicker when you enter practice, because it is relied upon very, very much when it comes to daily clinical guidance and clinical treatment summaries, and just being able to formulate your management plans according to the guidelines available on the CK and BNF websites. Those resources are not just for guidances and management plans, they're actually for clinical assessments as well. So you're able to go through an evidence-based resource bank, which is very important to be able to actually validate your clinical practice, as well as take steps that are referenced in evidence-based medicine. As part of your training, there are some competencies and core processes that practices that you have to be able to competently navigate through. And BNF and CK guidelines are wonderful in terms of providing you the information and resources that will be tested vigorously as you go through training. I was able to formulate very good principles early on using the CK and BNF guidelines to help myself in terms of practicing for the PSA, Prescribing Safety Assessment, which is a UK clinical requirement for clinical trainees to successfully pass. And once again, it is a vital resource that I would recommend all my colleagues that are considering the UK training route to be able to familiarize with themselves with. Other than that, I was also very, very happy to be able to make some really, really good connections with my colleagues, with other healthcare professionals. There's a very well-supported and supervised, as well as well-coached system of trainees that are able to actually rely upon other senior colleagues to help themselves develop really, really good interpersonal relationships to handle the daily functionings that we have to as staff, because one department always has to be able to reach out and communicate well with other departments in order to provide best patient care. So I think I found that very useful, and that also, once again, is an important aspect of your clinical training, to be able to communicate effectively with your senior colleagues, with your other healthcare professionals. These are skills that will really help when it comes to actually providing really good patient care. Patients depend on us to be able to reach out and get that added benefit of, speaking to a senior, or getting a more trained, more higher trainee, core trainees perhaps, to be able to join a foundation trainee to assess a patient, to be able to advise what would be the best plan of action, taking every aspect of the patient's life into consideration. So there's a added element of holistic communication, care planning, which I found very, very important in terms of being able to give patients the best answers and best solutions to their complex problems. So I was able to actually develop really good understandings with IMTs, core trainees, with my supervisors, as well as other allied healthcare professionals, in order to be able to develop myself and also to improve any clinical deficiencies that you may have, and as well as develop additional clinical skills to be able to provide patients with the best care you can give. So it's a very good group. It's a group. I'd say it's a collaborative group model of care, which is very, very useful when it comes to providing patients with the optimum service that they need. And I think that is the model that's really, really good in terms of being able to minimize adherence and compliance issues when it comes to patients management. And I just felt like in the first 30 days to 60 days, communication with my fellow peers and colleagues was at that level that enabled me to be able to incorporate other opinions into my clinical opinion, and to formulate my plans accordingly, which tailored to the patient as well as the patient's caregivers, and just provided a more sound and complete assessment of a patient. So it was very useful in terms of keeping that channel of communication open between yourself and other healthcare professionals, reaching out for supervisors to be able to give you guidance when you need it. And you always have to be able to be comfortable to discuss a patient in a private professional environment with your colleagues without feeling the need of being judged. You must be able to raise your concerns effectively with your colleagues in an environment that is conducive to learning. So I really did enjoy that aspect of it so far. I know it's relatively early in my training. It's only been 30 to 60 days. So I am expecting myself to be able to, pick up more important skills as I go along. But initially, I think this has been the experience I've had for the first 30 days, that I've been able to just, develop really good communication skills with my colleagues. I've been able to depend on them in terms of, incorporating very important CK-BNF guidelines into my clinical knowledge to be able to better, help patients and manage patients. And another essential and very essential skill that I've actually really, depended upon for myself as well, and this goes back to Canada, has been my ability to help my colleagues in need. I think that is one of the most important principles for physicians these days. We must be able to assist our colleagues in a way that does not, jeopardize our responsibilities, but also takes into consideration the fact that certain services can be overloaded. There are certain, departments that are experiencing a tremendous amount of stress. And as professional colleagues, it is very important for us to take that added step to ask our colleagues how they're doing, to ask them if there's anything that you can do to actually help them out. And we're all in this together. We need to understand that healthcare works very well if everybody feels like they're invested in each other's progress. We need to be able to feel that connection in terms of being able to provide good patient care to our patients. We need to communicate well with our colleagues. We need to take that added step to ask a colleague if they're having a bad day. Hey, is there anything I can do to help you out? Is there anything I can take off your plate today that could possibly, free you up a little bit so you're a little bit less, stressed out for the day? We need to take that added step because I think as healthcare professionals, we are extremely overburdened with a lot of different, difficult, complex cases. But we tend to forget that there are a lot of other healthcare professionals that work alongside of us that are also feeling this burnout. So it's an important aspect of our training and development to be able to take that added step to help our colleagues in practice, as well as to be just following the GMC guidance, because GMC guidance is very clear on this. As professional trainees, we must be able to take that added step to show that we are, we acknowledge another colleague perhaps struggling or another colleague overburdened with work. But we need to take that step to help them out because that is part of the GMC professional guidance. And I believe that's something I'm really good at when it comes to, reaching out and helping my colleagues in practice. And the reason for that is because I believe healthcare professional is a collaborative work. It's a collaborative teamwork. We are only as good as the parts and the sums that bring us together. So that's my take-home message for the first 30 days. Stay tuned for further updates. I will be talking more in depth about certain skills that I've picked up in the first 30 days. There's amazing training support that I've felt in the first 30 days. So I will be explaining, going into detail about different aspects of my training so far that have really helped me understand the CK guidelines and the BNF more, completely. As far as enjoying training is concerned, I am enjoying training in my first 30 days, 60 days now. So it has been really fun at the moment. I'm in Ashford, East Kent. So it's about 30 or 40 minutes out of Maidstone, but about an hour and a half from London. So the weather at the moment is nice. It does rain quite a bit here, but that's something I had factored in before because I came from Victoria, BC, so Western Canada, and it does rain there quite a bit as well. So thank you so much for listening, guys, and stay tuned. There's going to be tons of updates coming your way. Thanks. Have a great day.